Barramundi is an ancient name for a fish with large scales. It traces its origins far back in time to the indigenous Turrumbal people of what is today the Rockhampton region of central Queensland. For thousands of generations, barramundi were an integral part of the indigenous culture and a valuable food source. The first Australians only took enough to satisfy their needs. They had a true understanding of the value of these fish, as Malcolm Mann explains.
So I'm from the Darrabal Nation, Darrabal peoples here on our country. We're made up of about 4 clan groups. So yeah, over 2,000 generations of connection here in our country here, but certainly seen a fair bit of change, particularly in the last couple of generations, in relation to our river and our sea country and that. So I'm fairly passionate about, the sustainability of these areas. Barramundi, is one of those animals that, certainly tells stories about looking after the place. Sort of a reminder too around what sustainability is, and if we sort of, cut across the line around the life cycle of them animals, then there's, where we call Yadaba is respect. So where we cut across that line of respect for that animal.
Sadly, modern man did cut across that important line of respect, especially during the long years of intensive commercial netting that took place in the Fitzroy River and surrounding waters. The sheer tonnage of fish extracted from the system over this time was nothing short of staggering. It was also clearly not sustainable in the long term. Happily, all that has changed. The Rockhampton community has seized the initiative by embracing one of the state's largest net-free zones, and the social benefits have been immense. Long-time recreational angler and tireless researcher Bill Sornock provides a wonderful information service to the fishing industry and remains as passionate as ever about the future of the mighty Fitzroy River and its fish. He also loves nothing better than a little hands-on data collection.
No, it's a little barra. He's just lightly hooked. There we go. That out too. Got him. Yeah, 2-year-old fish. And the number is V17644. In the lead up to the election in 2015, it was only a few days before the actual election, the government, particularly through Bill Byrne, made an announcement that they were going to establish a number of net-free areas along the Queensland coast as part of their election commitment. And those 3 areas were Cairns, Mackay and Rockhampton. And everybody thought, well, the Fitzroy was never going to be a net-free zone, but through Bill's hard work, he brought that about.
All of the things that we said on the upside are coming to fruition. And you don't have to be Einstein to see that. There's an enormous amount of data out there validating the points we've made. We could go and look at the river on a nearly a daily basis and see the amount of activity that there is in and around the river these days relative to what there once was. It's an attractive piece for all the reasons we said it would be, and tourism is certainly benefiting in this region, there's no doubt of that, as well as small businesses that are piggybacking off the net-free zones.
And so what we're seeing is a total resetting of the system, resetting in a good way, because what we have here is much more sustainable than what it was prior to the nets being removed.
Respected fishing journalist and commentator Steve Starling is one of the many regular visitors who now travel to Rockhampton every year to sample the dramatically improved standard of recreational fishing on offer today. Starlo knows that world-class action like this will only continue to draw more and more visitors from across the country and around the globe, with obvious benefits to the local economy.
It's nice when a plan comes together. Oh, he's he's a barra.
Look at that. There we go. Beautiful fish.
Even in local creeks like Currumbin Creek, the interesting thing about that was it's always been a net-free zone, but I've seen a lot more fish even in that area. So it's really good to see big fish, which we've always had in the system as well, moving around a lot more.
Never used to get these schools of threadfin here when the nets were in, and the massive schools, you know, especially this time of the year, they move up and down, and yeah, you can follow them around. And I suppose even not so much offshore, but around the close-in islands and that sort of stuff, when the barra move out there in winter, there's a lot more barra out there this time of year than what there used to be.
The Fitzroy and its many feeders represent a massive interconnected system with many different habitat types and target species on offer.
Aren't they great looking fish? It's just amazing the variety on offer here in the Fitzroy River around Rockhampton. You don't know whether you're going to catch a barra, threadfin salmon, a blue salmon, one of these beautiful javelin fish or grunter. They're a brim, they're a flathead, all kinds of things right in the middle of town.
I'm seeing a pretty good increase in fish numbers up in town in Rockhampton. Definitely lots of smaller fish that have bred over the last few years. The numbers of the barra and king threadfin have definitely increased. Yeah, so it looks like in the group of charter operators that we have in the area that the general consensus is that the numbers are increasing and the range from where the people are coming from is widening as well.
I've found that the flats fishing offshore has improved dramatically as well. So the net-free zone has been a fantastic thing all round. The numbers of fish we see in the shallow water up on the flats now, you just don't see in areas where the flats are commercially netted. So it's been a great thing for Rockhampton and the whole region.
Some bigger species, the mackerel. A lot of people didn't realise that they were netted. So they come down and spawn every year in the mouth of the Fitzroy, so good to see the numbers of grey mackerel and stuff like that picking up as well.
Well done.
Small one this time.
Just coming towards you.
Yeah.
Getting the nets out has had an incredibly positive effect across the whole region, with benefits that extend well beyond the mouth of the Fitzroy River into Keppel Bay and surrounding waters. Fish numbers are booming. Further inland, the backcountry and its rich beef cattle grazing lands also offer access to a multitude of fascinating freshwater environments that are set against striking natural backdrops. Here in rivers, creeks, weirs, lagoons and billabongs, anglers can chase the largest and most diverse array of freshwater fish to be found anywhere in the country. The Fitzroy River catchment is truly massive. It's also highly varied and fascinating, and with a surface area more than double that of Tasmania, there are no shortage of options to be explored. While Barramundi ranges through many of these inland waters, it's the unique and fascinating Saratoga that lures so many keen fishers into the backcountry. These living fossils provide exceptional sight fishing opportunities for both fly and lure anglers. Their flesh is full of bones, making them a catch and release only prospect and helping to protect their stocks. Nonetheless, there's still a need for careful management, especially in terms of ensuring water quality in these places where they live and breed. The other big drawcard in the tidal reaches of the Fitzroy is a wonderful sport fish known as the king threadfin or threadfin salmon. Fast, powerful and tasty, they're present in great numbers, but they're not always easy to catch.
You can see them on the sounder, just don't give up, keep working away on them.
something might trigger them to have a bite, or you might just happen to get that lure right across one's nose. This one, I felt him tap it once and then eat it. He may have even touched it with his feelers. And there's the
Coming
leader.
up now.
And there's
There
colour.
he is. Oh, he's a lovely
Yeah,
salmon.
he's a big salmon.
The silver one.
Yeah, he's not yellow like they often are here. Might have come up fairly fresh from the down further in the tidal water, this bloke.
Oh, he's a good fella. That's nice. Little.
Oh, thank you, love.
Well done, you.
Well, worked for him.
Yeah. I'll just bring him up here onto
Yep.
the casting deck. We should...
Very silvery. Often they're a golden yellow out of here.
Almost like the chartreuse lures
Yeah.
that you see.
Oh, look at that, just pinned
Beautifully.
big mouth.
Big
You know,
mouth,
they can
yeah.
eat whatever they want. They can eat big Popeye mullet and all kinds of things, but they actually spend a lot of time eating small stuff, prawns and little bait fish. Let's get a length on this guy. Massive difference, of course, between fork length and tip length on a threadfin salmon. I'll tell you both. Yeah. They're just the coolest fish. So he's about 81 and a half to the fork, but 90, well, actually you get
98.
near 98 and a bit to the tips. So not a bad fish, and that, believe it or not, is about average for the Fitzroy River here in town. Now, because he's put in a pretty hard battle, I'm going to hold him in the water there and swim him for a little bit before I let him go. For a fight, I'm just holding him here, facing into the incoming tide, letting that water flow into his mouth, out over his gills, and he just bit me quite hard. So he's getting quite close to being ready to go. These fish are quite susceptible to barotrauma or pressure change, but luckily we're only in about 4.5 metres of water here, so it's not such an issue. But when you're pulling them out of 9, 10, 12 metres of water, you need to get them back into the water as quick as possible, and you may even need to use a drop weight to get them down to depth to recompress them. But out of this shallower stuff, I reckon he's going to go pretty well.
When the net-free area came in, we decided that we wanted to make sure that the fishery in the river was sustainable. And so we asked the fishermen around as what they thought would be sustainable fishing practices. And then we came up with a voluntary code. That voluntary code has a number of elements to it. One is that we're asking people to voluntarily limit their catch to 2 barra, 2 threadfin between 60 centimetres and a metre. That's quite a bit lower than the regulations allow you to do. But the interesting thing is we've done surveys of the catches in the river. 97% of trips actually conform to the code of practice. Take home a feed, not a freezer full, is pretty much the catch cry that we've come up with in terms of that. And so with even our visiting anglers now, most of them are actually conforming to that code of practice, even though they're probably not even aware that it exists. If we are to build the Fitzroy fishery here into the future, then it's absolutely imperative that we have a sustainable product there, and the only way we can do that is by making sure that we limit the catches, but also that we have the data there to understand what is happening in the river at any time.
Where the net-free areas extend offshore to encompass surrounding islands and reef systems, there's also exceptional fishing on offer for all manner of exciting marine species, such as these queenfish.
Still there. Oh, another one. Woohoo! Oh! Oh! Oh, he got it.
From the offshore islands to the rugged tropical coastline, through the bays and the vast lower estuary, and up to the tidal river reaches to the city precincts of Rockhampton itself, fish numbers are booming now that the nets have been removed. When conditions are right, there are few better places on earth to cast a line.
This Fitzroy River fishery is just amazing. We are literally in the middle of downtown Rockhampton. Busy bridges with traffic pouring across them. The buildings of the CBD up here. And right here is one of the best barramundi and threadfin salmon fisheries on the Queensland coast. It's just remarkable, and it just shows what can happen if you get the nets out. It's not rocket science. Barra one cast, threadfin the next. How good's this? Oh. Look at the colour of him. Just amazing. Look at those whiskers. Fantastic. That was quite a soft, muffled strike. They tend to come up and surround the lure with those big, long sensory whiskers, and then they sort of mumble and fumble their way onto it sometimes. It's not a crisp, distinctive strike a lot of the times, but boy, oh boy, you know when you get them on. Fast and erratic is the best way to describe the threadfin. They all fight differently. Some come in fairly easily, others go completely ballistic. But they're a wonderful fish, also a really nice fish to eat. But I'm going to put this one back.
We are absolutely thrilled here on the beautiful Fitzroy at the success of the Nets Rezone program. This came about through a gutsy move from the state government, and Rockhampton at just that moment was looking for ways in which we could increase visitor numbers, and we realised that recreational fishing is a huge opportunity for Queensland generally, but it really brought major opportunities to us. Council grabbed it with both hands. There was a little bit of money offered by the state government for marketing, but we then put together a really clearly defined strategy and delivered it. I obviously muchly helped by the fact that the fish are really there, but we have seen a significant increase in the number of visitors who are coming here to fish. It has reinvigorated fishing as an activity and hobby among our own community, but we've seen a six-fold increase in the number of visitors to the region who are coming to fish. This is a massive catchment that we've got here. It's the second largest river catchment in Australia, I think the largest on the east coast of Australia, and it is home to obviously the barramundi, but also threadfin salmon and a host of other fish varieties. In fact, barramundi is an indigenous word. It's from our own local Darumble people, and this was the first place that European visitors and settlers saw the mighty fish. So we are thrilled with what the barramundi and threadfin salmon and our whole recreational fishing strategy has brought to our community.
I couldn't be happier with how things are progressing. I still think we've probably got a couple more years of the cycle to go with getting the fish stocks back to what I think is will be a normalised level. And when we get there, I can't wait to see what the results will be, because you can see now the types of captures that are happening in the system, and they are incredible. And everybody who's got the slightest interest in this knows that. They see it with their own two eyes. And they see the fish being captured. You can sit and have a coffee overlooking the river in Rockhampton now, as I'll be doing this afternoon, and you can watch people pulling in, jigging up and pulling in barramundi literally 30 metres from you. So not many places in Australia you can do that.